Yay. Okay, so it's 7 o'clock. We're just going to take a few minutes to let everybody in. Hello, hello, and welcome. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Women in Climate. We're just taking a couple minutes, letting everybody into the Zoom. Maybe take a second to reorient yourself. Remember what Zoom's all about. Locate the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. Maybe click the chat and introduce yourself to everybody. Drop in your name and where you're zooming in from. I'll start it off.
Welcome, everyone.
Hi. If you're just joining, drop in the chat your name and where you're zooming in from. We're just taking a couple minutes as people log on. Hi, Patricia. Patricia's my friend. Also, maybe throw in a little reaction at the bottom of the Zoom screen. You're going to see a heart that says react. Maybe throw us a heart or a little emoji reaction. Hi, everybody. This is so exciting. We'll let Big Yellow Taxi play out for another minute, and then we'll get started in just a second. Tell us how you're feeling today, where you're zooming in from. We'll just get started in a second here. Awesome. All right, well, I think it's about time that we get started. People may be trickling in as we go. Wow, we're so excited. Thank you for joining us this evening to celebrate Women's History Month and Sustainable Westchester's first Women in Climate webinar. My name is Megan Ort, and I'm a program manager on the residential building decarbonization team. And we have a great evening planned. Just a little overview. We're going to start with an icebreaker, followed by our panel discussion and Q&A session with our wonderful panelist and moderator, who we will introduce shortly. And then we'll pivot to offering some climate actions that you can take this evening right here on the Zoom. This is about climate action as well as community building and celebrating women. And then we'll close out the session with the opportunity for you to join some breakout rooms for smaller group discussions if you'd like. And if we run a little bit over, no worries. We'll go till about I don't know, 8:45 maybe. Few housekeeping things to keep things moving nicely. We'd like for everybody to stay on mute today. And if you do have any questions, any technical issues or anything like that, just drop it in the chat. And our Sustainable Westchester staff will help you with that. Also, if you have any questions that you would like to ask our panelists at any point, drop it in the chat. We will keep track of that and bring it out again during the Q&A. And also, if you are moved to share any climate actions that come to mind, any events or actions or groups of interest, drop it in the chat. We're going to compile all of those and send it out in a post Zoom email, which reminds me, if you didn't get an email reminder from us about this event, that probably means that we don't have your email. So don't leave this Zoom until we get your email address. And I think that's about it. With that, I'm going to pass it to my next co-host, Carmen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carmen Pei, and I work as a senior program manager within our solar department of Sustainable Westchester. And I'm really glad we're all here tonight also. And now I'm going to pass it on to Dara, our next co-host.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dara Rivadenera. I work also at Sustainable Westchester as a program coordinator. I work with the building decarbonization team, and I'm so happy that everyone can come and join us here today. So to start off, we're going to do a little icebreaker. If everyone can get their phones out, or we're going to also drop the link in the chat as well. Just a thought, kind of like a word cloud, get your thoughts out. What brings you here today, and why are you passionate about the climate action? You can just scan that QR code right on the corner of the screen, and then feel free to type in your thoughts.
It says one word, and you can do many words. Pop in any word that comes to mind. Anybody having problems with the word cloud, just give a holler in the chat. Okay, so we're seeing our cloud building. Community's a big one. Empowerment, yes. Policy, yeah, we're gonna get into that. Action, absolutely.
Inspire. Passion for the environment, of course.
The future.
And change.
We love a word cloud. Yeah, this is great to set the tone. We're going to be touching on a lot of these ideas, these topics in our panel today, for sure. Last minute to plug in some ideas. Our planet is our only home. Yes. Grateful, gratitude. I love that. Connections, education.
Our planet is our only home.
Yeah.
Resilience.
Yes, the future. Progress. Positive vibes. Okay, I'm loving it.
I definitely love hope.
Network. Yeah. Courage. All right, all right.
I love seeing all this cluster of ideas and thoughts.
Caring for others, yes. That's a big idea that came up in when we were talking about having this webinar in the first place, you know, the intersection of female identity and care and love and nurturing, those themes really align. All right, well, we should probably close out our word cloud in just a second and move on to the rich conversations that we're going to be having with our panel soon.
Yeah, and I'm seeing the word cloud, and it's going to resonate with a lot of the panelists here on the topics that we covered today.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that word cloud, Dara. Next up, I think we toss it back to Carmen, right?
Yes, thank you, Megan. All right, so I'm going to get us started with our panel session. And so if you have any questions, as a reminder, drop them in the chat. And I'm excited to get us started by introducing our moderator, Dr. Anilla Cherian. Anilla is a climate change and clean energy expert who has worked with a range of global and state institutions. With a professional career spanning over 20 years, she has written numerous research articles on climate change and is author to 2 books, both published by Wiley. Her book, released in 2022, Air Pollution, Clean Energy, and Climate Change. And she also has a second book that she released called Energy and Global Climate Change, Bridging the Sustainable Development Divide. Anilla is the principal of Sustain Resiliency LLC and also serves on the board of Sustainable Westchester. She has worked extensively on improving access to clean energy technologies and energy efficiency codes, products, and standards. She has advanced degrees from the University of Massachusetts Amherst and a dual major undergraduate degree from Cornell University. She remains active as a community volunteer focused on food security and sustainability. Dr. Anilla Cherian, welcome. We are thrilled to have you here tonight.
Wow, that was a lot. Thank you for everyone. Thank you for joining, and to all of you for sparing this time with us. First, let me begin by applauding the wonderful women of Sustainable Westchester and all of you on this audience here, because you are the reason why we're all hopeful and optimistic. I'm going to allow each panelist to quickly introduce themselves, and what I would love for us to all focus on is your independent roles as women engaging in the climate and sustainability space. So in order that I have it on my screen. Niki, Armacost, please tell us a little bit about yourself and then kick it on to the other panelists. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anilla, and thanks to Sustainable Westchester for being such fabulous hosts. I'm Niki Armacost. I'm the mayor of Hastings-on-Hudson, lifelong climate activist here in the US and around the world. Super proud that Hastings is the highest ranked climate smart community in New York State, which I think is more important now than ever, and prouder still to have created the Mayor's Climate Youth Council with 2 young women from our local high school a few years ago. So that sums it up.
No, I think you're one of the women that she's talking about.
Oona, are you talking about Oona?
Yes, is Oona, can you introduce yourself? Because
Oona isn't one of the women who started the Mayor's Climate Youth Council, but she is very exciting in her own right and received a grant from us last year for a project involving climate, which she can talk about.
excellent. Oona, so go ahead, introduce yourself, and then I'm going to pass it on to Kat after that.
Hi everyone, my name is Oona and I'm a 17-year-old environmental activist. I do most of my work with Jane Goodall's Roots and Shoots on the National Youth Council, focusing on climate education, where I organized the inaugural Westchester Youth Climate Summit this fall through the grant that Niki was talking about. And I also do work with Audubon New York and as a member of the Youth Action Council for the UN Ocean Decade, doing work advocating for environmental legislation. And I'm also involved with the Sunrise Movement and Fridays for Future on a more local level.
So Oona's clearly very busy. Kat?
I can't believe you had me follow this incredible 17-year-old. Seriously. Great stuff. Hi, everyone. I'm Kat Sayles. I'm the COO of Sustainable Westchester, where we provide sustainability solutions to Westchester County residents, businesses, and local government. I'm also the Southern Westchester chapter leader of Mothers Out Front as a volunteer. Mothers Out Front is a grassroots climate advocacy organization that's led by parents and caregivers. And my most important job is being the mom to a 5-year-old. I'm going to pass it to Judy.
You have a pretty stellar resume yourself. So everyone here, let's just reassure our audience, everyone is very, very involved. Judy, Candida, and Norah, go ahead. Judy, would you like to kick us off?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Judy Sandford. I'm a managing director of sustainability strategy and communications for a management consulting firm called SIA. About 20 years ago, I founded a practice for sustainability reporting at a small boutique called Addison, which was acquired by SIA 3 years ago. And my personal passion is the environmental part of ESG. In my spare time, I like to volunteer with the Climate Reality Project. And I'm delighted to share some of my learnings from being one of the few women at the top over the last 20 years that I've been in consulting.
Thank you, Judy. Candida?
Hello, good evening, everyone. I'm Candida Rodriguez, the Director of Community Engagement and Communications at Groundwork Hudson Valley. Groundwork is a community-driven organization that's based in Yonkers, New York. We work on making sure that we're creating healthier and more resilient neighborhoods in Yonkers, and our work ensures that our communities are resilient, adaptable to climate challenges like extreme heat and flooding, but that also we're not just taking on these concepts, but creating real community-led solutions. So my role is to ensure that we're bringing in community members into our projects and processes. And former to that, I was with the United Nations Development Program, working with small island nations in shaping their climate plans. So that's a little bit about me. I'm based in New York City, and yeah, nice to be here with everyone.
Candida, that is quite the travel on climate change. Norah, you also have like you've also traveled a bit, and share with us what brings you to the climate space.
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Norah. I'm currently a senior at Fordham University studying environmental studies, economics, and sustainable business. And currently I'm interning at Fordham's Office of Sustainability, but I'm also a former intern at Sustainable Westchester as well. And my passion for sustainability has led me to various countries to do different types of research and different types of projects. For example, I've been to Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, and I actually studied in Australia a couple of years ago. So that was really awesome to do, focusing on ecological justice and sustainability as a whole. I've also served on the Cornell Cooperative Extension Advisory Board to just basically assessing local, regional clean energy areas and issues as well. And sustainability, I live, breathe, eat it. So I'm very much passionate about it. So yeah.
So clearly the audience is in for a treat. None of these women have been slacking off on the climate front, clearly. So I'm going to immediately sort of, we were going to share your passions, but your passions are quite apparent, and we're going to jump into a series of panelist tailored questions. And at any time, if any of the audience has a question for our panelists, please, as Megan said, put it in the chat session, okay? Niki, as one of New York State's most active municipal leaders on climate and clean energy community action, what are some of the most valuable municipal policy focused lessons you can share with others? For example, how did you manage to build and leverage climate focused partnerships with your peers?
So I would say that the biggest lesson is how much you can get done by working collaboratively, both within and outside the municipality. I'm constantly amazed at what our volunteers have accomplished inside the village, from launching a take it or leave it shed, which, by the way, we copied from Larchmont, to creating a local thrift shop and flea market to reuse old clothing, developing pollinator pathway programs, guiding nature walks, planting trees to address flooding, galvanizing everyone around food waste recycling. It's really volunteers who run these efforts. And the main job of the municipality has basically been to say yes and get out the way. We've also worked collaboratively to run several successful energy reduction campaigns that residents have embraced, including on grid rewards, and that's a shout out to Sustainable Westchester, and particularly to Lauren, who was an amazing partner on that as well. Community solar, promoting EVs, heat pumps and geothermal. And what we've done on several of those campaigns is work in a kind of friendly, competitive way with sister municipalities, the ones that are closest to us in the river towns, to encourage residents to participate. I worked on a more regional level, both within Westchester County as part of the Westchester Municipal Officials Association, and as a member of two of NICOM's policy committees, one which focuses on the environment and the other which is the Women's Advisory Committee. And together as municipalities, we've encouraged the state to adopt progressive climate legislation like the Climate Superfund Act, which the governor signed, I think, in the last minute of the last day that things could be signed last year, as well as the Birds and Bees Act, which is not what people think it is, but is very cool and very environmentally focused. And most recently, we've worked on Stop Project Maple, New York Heat, the Bottle Bill, the Packaging Reduction and Clean Deliveries Act. And all of those are really important initiatives where resolutions from municipalities, sign-on letters really make a difference in terms of moving things forward. And I've also been a huge advocate, as you well know, for the state's climate smart communities and clean energy programs. So what I would say is the most effective way to build these partnerships, which is sort of the second part of your question, is through connection between municipal leaders, regular face-to-face meetings, other ways of connecting that build trust. And as women's mayors, we realize there are about 9 of us in Westchester. And what we do is on a periodic basis, we meet for lunch, we exchange ideas, we discuss strategy, we provide support to one another. And it's an incredibly fantastic way to move things forward. And the other thing that I do is that in March each year, I have an International Women's Day soiree at my house. I see Marcia Brewster among the people who are here. And there's a large cross-section of women who are activists, many of whom are in the climate space. And they come together, they network, they get to know each other, they brainstorm, they plan, and most importantly, we have fun. So those are sort of some of the strategies that we employ here, or I employ here in Hastings. I'm going to turn my light on because it's getting a bit dark here. There.
Yeah, shine the light, Niki. Listen, this piece about networking, communication, community building, and fostering that sense of camaraderie is a thread that runs through all of us, right? And it's a logical sort of handover to our young activists, Oona and also Norah, who, you know, many of the community organizing pieces will be threads that we will pick up throughout. So that being said, Oona, you know, what are some of the lessons that you have learned from your climate activism as a high school student into organizing, you know, climate summits and doing the various things that you have done? How do you look for community, just along the lines of what Niki said, with your cohort of climate activists?
Yeah, so after I first got involved with climate activism, I realized how important community is. I had felt very apathetic and isolated in the beginning of high school because I wasn't involved in any environmental work. And so it felt like no one around me cared about the climate, and I'd kind of lost hope, and I didn't know how I could do anything to help stop climate change. But after I started to get involved with different environmental work, I was able to find connections with other people with the same passions as me. And it really gave me so much hope and inspiration. And so in any work that I do, that's what I try to bring. I try to bring a sense of community. And so with the summit, I wanted to give other youth at the summit that feeling of community and give them a place to make connections and feel inspired and motivated. So I made sure that there were collaborative activities and time for attendees to talk to one another. And I also wanted to have organizations tabling to make sure that the attendees felt like there was a way for them to get involved with local climate work.
Amazing. So now to another hero amongst the myths, and Niki, Masha, you and I also go back a long way, and I see that you said Niki is the hero. Clearly she is. But to Kat, who has worn the you know, the double hats of being a coup of Sustainable Westchester and you know, participating in Mothers Out Front. Can you tell us, Kat, like what specific advice do you have for women and mothers who are leading the way on climate and sustainability efforts? You know, it's exhausting, definitely, but exhilarating at the same time. So tell us what got you involved in both spaces and what lessons you can share.
Sure. Well, I would say trust your lived experience as a source of power. I think our instincts as women and caregivers to protect our children and communities from harm make us some of the most effective climate advocates and organizers out there. And lead with your values. Don't be afraid to take up space where the decisions are made. Get involved in local advocacy. Call your legislators. Just do what you can to take up space and be heard by the decision makers. And I would say also that often women, and especially mothers, are expected to carry the emotional weight of this work quietly, but your voice and your perspective and your leadership are really essential to building the just and sustainable future that we and future generations all deserve. And then last, I think other people have already said this, but having a sense of community and finding like-minded people to help you with the work that you're doing. This work is very heavy, And when you surround yourself with other people who inspire you and are in it for the long haul, it really does make it easier. I said last already, but I did have one more thought. It's important that we celebrate the wins, even the really small ones. Not to say that this event is small in any way, but I would say this in and of itself is a win that we should all celebrate, because every single thing we do in the climate space is working towards a more sustainable future, and we need to celebrate it. So everything adds up, and just think about the good vibes, the people that are working in this space, and all of the wins that we have every time we take an action.
Yes, yes, yes. Kat, we really should cherish, these times in the midst of whatever happens, this opportunity to share, collaborate. So thank you for putting us on that path. Candida, you're a community organizer. You and I, actually, when I listen to all the panelists, I have something in common with all of you. Candida, you mentioned that you were at UNDP, and then you also worked with SIDS, and now you work with Groundwork Hudson. Can you tell us the role of the role of women community organizers, given that, you know, historically marginalized and vulnerable communities in New York State often do not have representation and voices? So that voice of the female community organizer in building resilience and community building at Groundwork Hudson. What have you taken from it? How do you share with the audience today? What are some of the lessons?
I haven't heard SIDS in a long time, so you just took me a couple of years back. But thank you for that. So the role of a community organizer, and women in general, I remember when I was at the UN, I was in Fiji. This is before I decided to move on from the UN and then join Groundwork. But I was one of the only young professionals to really raise and hone in on, like, we need to talk about gender equity, especially if we're talking about climate policy and shaping these policies across these very small island countries in the Pacific, where we can affect real change because of the demographic. It's a small population, and we have to ensure that this is being included into these processes. Now, if you take that into a local context, into a city, or even within a neighborhood, when we're working on climate resilience or adaptation or climate justice, and we're creating projects and policies that ultimately will impact people's daily lives, we have to be intentional about the types of people and who is at the table when they're, making these decisions, when these projects are being created. I've been lucky enough to join Groundwork right when we started establishing a community task force that brought together residents to learn about their local climate environmental impacts and to come up with very hyper local solutions. We were included in the development of the first Yonkers Climate Action Plan, which was an initiative that the city led, where residents were able to provide their feedback and input into the plan. And one thing that we really honed in on is that we wanted to make our community task force diverse, and we also wanted to make it accessible for everyone, including women. And how we did that was making sure that we provided transportation to our meetings, our community meetings, that we provided childcare for the working, folks and the mothers that couldn't leave their child with anyone, making sure that they could probably join virtually, making the meetings hybrid, and compensating people for their time and for their knowledge. A lot of the times we forget that folks, especially within communities, know a lot. They know their communities best. They should be compensated for it. So when I'm thinking about community organizing and with bringing women into decision-making processes, we have to make it accessible, but we also have to be intentional, and we have to mean it.
Thank you, Candida. Judy, you are next, and you have sort of led the way in a space as a female leader, woman leader in the corporate sustainability space. So you have a lot of lessons to share for young people and or all of us in this audience who are looking to you to say, you know, what was some of the biggest challenges or the areas of climate work that you have focused on that you took the most interest in and managed to develop as a corporate leader?
Yeah, well, most of my work has focused on helping Fortune 100 or Fortune 500 companies explain their sustainability programs. And as we all know, it's very hard to explain what climate change is because it happens very slowly across a long time frame, and it's largely invisible until you see something like an extreme weather event. So I'm really proud of the work that I've done to help both my clients and all their stakeholders understand what climate change is, why it's important to address it, and also how a particular company's impacts can be reduced over time to really help us slow climate change. So, you know, we've done a lot of interesting data visualization and videos and things that people can really grasp, easily understand, and explain to other people.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to Norah, who is the last panelist I'm going to ask the question to, but then I'm going to do a round robin and come back to others. And just to keep things interesting, I may not do it in the order that we went in before, okay? So Norah, tell us a little bit. You have done, like many others, you've taken a series of different sustainability-focused internships. You've traveled abroad. You're also an advocate and a climate advocate. And what would you share in terms of your current research work at Fordham and your passion for, you know, following the major that you did at Fordham?
Yeah, so a big part of what I'm working on right now is actually researching Scope 3 emissions. And for those who don't know, that's basically all the things that are not measured when you're focusing on Scope 1 and Scope 2. So things like commuting, business travel, purchasing goods, that typically falls underneath Scope 3. So luckily through my internships and then my research experience and going abroad and taking different classes, learning different perspectives, it's been able to enrich my perspective on my research. And Fordham is making good progress, especially for an institution that is historically old, is a Jesuit university, has certain rules that are in place, but there are still some things that need to change, of course. So one of the things that I'm focusing on is procurement. So purchasing better goods, things that are more sustainable, things that could be biodegradable, and seeing how other institutions like Harvard, Cornell, University of Illinois is doing that, how they are implementing that into their strategies right now in order to make sure that these products are going to work for their students, their staff, anyone involved with the campus, but at the same time doesn't have so much of a large carbon footprint. And I think that's so important, especially since, like I mentioned, Fordham's historically old and it's still catching up with some parts of the rest of the world in terms of certain, you know, outlooks. But I think right now my biggest focus is trying to leave Fordham this gift of research with my other peers that are also doing similar policy and scope and emission research in order to make sure that we keep this going and make sure that there's a good progress being made eventually by Fordham's 2030 deadline.
Thank you, Norah. One question I have for the audience in general is if you could please post in the chat ideas or climate projects that you would like to see all of us get involved in. Because the whole point of this discussion, the Women in, you know, Climate Action, is to have an interactive opportunity. So whilst you will go into your breakout groups, it's nice for all of us when we're together. If you have any ideas that are front of mind, put it in the chat session, because in a way, it is so appropriate that we're being hosted by Sustainable Westchester and all these fantastic women that work there, because it is all these threads that you're all talking about: resilience, hope, research, community organization, planning for the future, policy, you know, all those various elements cutting through. But I'm gonna ask a series of questions to the panelists while folks in the audience start putting ideas down. to Kat. And I told you I'm going to, sort of mix it up a bit, not go in the same order that I did. Can you tell us what it meant to you personally to be involved with an organization like Mothers Out Front? What made you, you are juggling a full-time job is cool, and then you're also working with Mothers Out Front. What made you join that organization? What are some of the collaborative ideas that you've harnessed from there in particular, and what else can you share with us about climate, a climate project maybe that you're passionate about?
Sure. I will try to remember all of the things that you just asked. And of course, you're switching it up. You're full of surprises, Anilla. So I moved from Brooklyn to Westchester during the pandemic, and I didn't really have a community around me and didn't know any like-minded people because I was new to the area. And I was used to living in Brooklyn with very like-minded folks who were all about having a small carbon footprint, and we'd walk our compost to the farmer's market on Sundays. And then I moved here and I had no idea what kinds of programs or services were available. And I didn't know for the first 2 years that I lived here that we had a municipal compost, or food scrap recycling is what we call it, drop-off site. So I started composting in my backyard because I thought that's just what everybody did here. And eventually I started to find some like-minded folks. Getting involved with Mothers Up Front has been an extremely personal experience for me. Not only did I find other like-minded parents and caregivers that were really excited to work on local climate advocacy, but also I made a really great group of friends, we do all types of community events, from things like educating our neighbors about food scrap recycling. We've had clothing swaps. We've done a lot of advocacy for the New York Heat Act, and we held a rally in December. I think having that sense of community and purpose at a time when the scale of the climate crisis just feels so overwhelming has just given us so much energy. Just whether it's getting together over coffee or drinks and talking about New York heat, or just the current state of the world, we'll say, it gives us purpose and community and comfort in knowing that we're having shared experiences. I think it's also just important to remember that some of the most transformative work actually starts at kitchen tables and local meetings. Grassroots organizing is an important and critical part of the climate crisis and how we can actually make some change at home. I also feel like this has been a very full circle experience for me because I work on climate solutions at work. Even though I'm in an operations role, I'm not on the program side. It's given me a lot of confidence in how I speak about Sustainable Westchester's programs because I do this advocacy outside of work.
Well said, Kat. And you know what? That theme of friendship allows me to then pose a question to Niki, because you know what? We go back a long way too, Kat. Like Niki and I, our sons are the same age. And so we come to the climate space from a long time ago, Niki. So tell me, because of your municipal leadership and really like championing climate leadership at the municipal level, what are some of the biggest challenges that you see for your peer group going forward in this current climate, and or what are you going to do going in the next 5 years? What kind of passion project or what climate project do you see yourself most focused on?
So other than the craziness in DC, which we could spend an entire evening on, all of us, I'm sure, I would say access to financing is probably the biggest challenge facing a lot of municipalities, especially for infrastructure projects like installing solar or geothermal or flood damage mitigation or purchasing electric vehicles. it's hard to access grant funding for municipalities, and it can be challenging to develop consensus about making certain kinds of investments if you're using tax dollars or bonding for it as a way to finance it. So I would say access to finance is probably one of the biggest policy challenges. I also think it can be, in Hastings, we're very lucky, we're very aligned as a board, but I think for some municipalities, overcoming skepticism from other municipal officials, either on their board or that represent them, you know, at the state or federal level, or skepticism from staff members who have to implement the policies that you've adopted. I think that can be a real challenge. So, you know, even if you get the policies in place, you can't move the kind of machinery of the state to actually implement things. You know, we at the municipal level operate at a glacial pace, so it can take a really long time to get things done. And I found that the most effective way to counter that is if you can develop a financial reason for whatever it is you're doing, that there's going to be money saved by making that investment in that infrastructure at the end of the day, or money saved as a result of adopting that policy. I think that if you can make a financial argument and you can explain the case, you can make the case, basically, make the business case, as we would say in the rest of the world outside of municipal government, that that really helps to address those issues. I don't know if I answered that question. And then in terms of a passion project, I mean, I really think it's all about youth. I think it's super exciting to watch youth engagement, to see how that happens, to incorporate youth into our boards and commissions. We were super lucky, as I mentioned earlier, to get this grant from Bloomberg Philanthropies. We got $50,000, which we ended up providing 22 projects with micro grants for, including Oona. And this year we've been given $100,000 to do the same things. And I really just can't wait to see what our youth come up with. So I think the youth of the answer. They're the ones who have to live with this world, however it manifests itself in the future. And we've got to do whatever we can as municipal leaders and activists to make that world less bad. That sounds so negative, but you understand what I'm trying to say. So.
Oh yes, I get less bad, and I get youth activism every minute of the day. Speaking of youth activism, I might just kick it to both Oona and Norah. A similar question to both of you, and you can take it in any order. Listening to what Niki said, right? This idea of how do you see yourselves, each of you, involved in climate activism going forward? What are the things that you're gonna be working on to give us hope? Because, you know, it is sad to say that the climate is in a huge existential crisis. We're calling on you. What are your generation or your cohort of people, you know, young people, going to do? And maybe Norah, do you want to go first and then hand it over to Oona?
Yeah, that sounds great. And thanks for your question. Me personally, how I envision me carrying on this mission is to keep staying in school, actually, keep focusing on my education, keep learning, keep basically interacting with more people, getting the opportunity to understand different cultures, understand how their needs also are important in terms of addressing the climate issue. Especially, I've been understanding this concept actually when I've been working on my thesis, actually, which focuses on Haitian Dominican sugarcane workers. I'm a Dominican woman myself, and I was fortunate enough to go and see these issues firsthand, and it really inspired me to focus my whole thesis on it. And I hope to continue making that thesis larger and larger, and hopefully teaching it potentially in the class as a professor. And basically, I really, really just want to keep interacting with people at the end of the day, just learning. And from there, being able to just take these strategies I've been learning so far in my life and applying it to make sure that there is climate justice, ecological justice, human rights, so important. And as I keep writing my thesis and I keep doing my research, it just really just screams in my face that this is so important, and it must be more than just words on a paper. It has to be real life action. And I hope to go actually to the Dominican Republic again and talk to these people and actually start some form of human rights activism down there and making sure that there's actual care for these people doing this type of work. And it's so important to make sure that sustainability is much more than just a fancy word on a piece of paper. It's something that's actually being seen and manifested in everyday life.
Yeah, thank you, Norah, for bringing it back to the ecological justice piece of it, the climate justice piece of it. And kudos to you, yes, to being a female researcher. Oona, tell us what you see as a project that is dear to your heart. And whilst doing so, maybe if there are challenges or opportunities that you can see for your youth activism.
Yeah, I think something that's super important is climate education. I think right now there's a lot of misinformation and lack of education around climate change and what it means. And I think that in the future, working on getting climate curriculum put into schools is something that's super important, because if the youth don't grow up learning about nature and appreciating it, they won't care about it. And if they don't care about it, then they won't want to protect it. So I think that's something that should be implemented from a very young age, so that I think right now a lot of times when people talk about climate change, they say they're into the environment or they're into conservation. But I think getting to the point where it's not something you're into, it's just something that everyone cares about, that would be a really great point to get to.
Yeah, so thank you for highlighting this piece on environmental education, which actually segues perfectly into both Candida and Judy's work. Judy, you educate folks in the corporate space. Candida, you are community organizing in Yonkers on a day-to-day basis. Let me begin with you, Candida, quickly to ask a question about the importance about the importance of climate equity, which Norah touched upon, which Oona touched upon, which multiple speakers have. Can you center for the audience the importance of linking that climate equity and advocacy piece and speak to that in terms of either the work that you do or at Groundwork or the broader work that you've done in your lived experience?
Yeah, well, I do want to make a point to what Oona just mentioned, and I think it's really important to remind folks that we live and we are our environment. So it's not that you have to be into it, is that we are literally it. So a lot of the times my work requires to remind people that it's not about being a greenie or tree hugger or whatever names you want to put to it. It's about literally making our homes and our communities more livable, more comfortable, and just nicer places to live in. And one of the things that I've learned throughout my career and working across different communities, both here in New York as well as abroad, is that if you don't have community buy-in when you're trying to get a lot of these projects done, a lot of the times these projects will fail because you don't have people who care about the spaces or whatever it is that you're creating. Perhaps municipalities don't follow through for the period of time that they have to follow through to get more funding to maintain these spaces or these projects. So it's very important to get that buy-in very early on. And one of the things that I really appreciate about Groundwork is that we do include our communities in our environmental restoration and conservation projects from the very beginning, so that we can ensure that they're part of that process. Most recently, we just launched a new initiative with Panelists and the Hudson River Museum. And this partnership, we're working directly with local artists and residents in Yonkers to identify which are the hotspots in neighborhood by neighborhood. And because trees are not always feasible in a lot of these neighborhoods, how can we co-design shade structures that are both functional and reflect the community's vision? We're just beginning this process, but we are hoping that through this process, we're going to get community buy-in from the very beginning so that these shade structures can be developed, created, and installed in the next coming years, and that will actually be taken care of by community members, by the city, and everyone that is involved in this process. So for me, I really appreciate that we're rethinking how these climate solutions are, possible, and that we're bridging, our partnerships. We're connecting with utilities company and culture institution, and also with our residents and our communities to find practical ways to address these issues.
Thank you, Candida. And Judy, you're in a space where women leaders face a lot of challenges. So I'm particularly interested in hearing what you would like to share with the audience about, some of the projects that you're going to be working with in the near future, something that you're really, really passionate about, and or if you have a few minutes as well, to do the flip side of it and identify some of the major challenges that might be facing women corporate sustainability leaders.
Well, first, I just want to kind of build on what Candida was saying, and some of the others were saying that we have to make climate change personal. I just went to a conference at NYU today, and there was a lot of very interesting research around explaining the effects that climate has on your personal health, your children, the farmers that grow our food, the lifestyles of our children going forward. So I think it's great that everybody here understands that we have to put climate change into terms anyone can understand. And talking to corporations about their reporting, it's more like, what is the financial impact? What is the efficiency? What is the pollution? So my advice to women is to make sure that you have these facts ready when you go into a room and maybe you're the only woman presenting, that you're prepared, that you have all the facts behind you. It's not just wanting to do something good. It's actually gonna, affect health, affect pollution, affect the bottom line of a company. And I think when you have your facts ready, you can be very powerful and convincing. You just have to take the time to prepare.
So facts, harnessing facts and being prepared is something that I think it's a takeaway, but that we can all hold dear. But this piece about making the messaging around climate action, making it so that it really resonates at a deeply personal level, but it's also scalable in climate action terms. There's in the chat session, I see there was some discussion by some of our audience members about the importance of curbing, the use of plastic water bottles. So I posted something on Beyond Plastics, that there are opportunities for action that are very New York specific, led by the Beyond Plastics organization, by the former head of the EPA for New York and New Jersey and Connecticut, Judith Eng. There are opportunities for all of us to get together. And a lot of the threads that our panelists have highlighted are things that Sustainable Westchester, the folks now want to take it over and share with us, right? You're going to share with the audience some. It's that time. Megan, time's gone fast. It's 7:54. So we wanna hear from the audience a little bit, but also have an opportunity to have a question and answer period. So folks, you can either Sustainable Westchester, you can either tell us, they can unmute themselves, or we can read out some questions for the panelists.
Yeah, so at this point, if anybody has a direct question for any of the panelists, they can share in the chat or raise a hand. It's a small enough group, right?
What, folks are being shy? This is not a space for shyness. This is women in climate.
I have a question for Oona, actually, from one panelist to another. How old were you when you started working on climate and sustainability?
Since I can remember, when I was in kindergarten, we had a project where on the 100th day of school, we had to bring in 100 things, and I drew 100 endangered animals. So I was brought up caring about the environment, caring about nature. So it's just been ingrained in me from a very young age.
I love to hear that. I've been teaching my daughter about composting and recycling since, I don't know, since she was born, basically. And she was a cloth diaper baby, so she never had a regular diaper on her butt ever. And she likes to tell people about it. And she thinks the absolute worst offense is littering, which I'm a proud mom for sure.
So we have a question that I am partial to, and I'm going to use my moderator privilege a little bit. Lauren, who works so hard on behalf of so many of us in Sustainable Westchester, has a question. She would like to hear about big challenges. So, panelists, when you, in your environmental work, in your climate activism, in your climate research, can you identify what has been a big challenge that you have faced? It may be a research project, it may be, a door being closed, something that you learned to be better prepared for. Can you share with us what are some of the big climate related challenges you faced, that any lesson learned? Because Lauren just doesn't want just your challenge. She also wants a lesson learned.
Anilla, I'll throw something out for you. I think for me, the biggest challenge is just the sort of existential hugeness of the climate crisis. It can feel overwhelming for people. There are so many people who've told me they have climate anxiety. I was actually at a gala dinner where a chap I met just spent an hour telling me about climate anxiety that he had. And I think the way that I've dealt with that is to try and break it down into solvable chunks. And you know that I'm a huge advocate of the Climate Smart Communities program. Part of the reason I'm an advocate is there are so many different actions that individuals can participate in, individuals can lead, municipalities can be involved in, and it makes you feel like you've accomplished something. It makes you feel like you've done something. You've created a Tilly garage, or you've started the food scrap program. You've promoted electric vehicles. You've disinvested from Tesla. That's a new one for people. But you've taken on these actual actions, and you're documenting it, and you're sharing it, and you're building the story for your municipality. So that would be my contribution to Lauren's great question.
Anyone else? The climate existential, the climate anxiety piece is so real, and it permeates all our life. It's just really valuable advice, Niki, to break it into bite-sized portions. If I have time, I will add one quick thing, but I want to give other people an opportunity to weigh in. Kat, yes, go ahead. Judy, anyone?
Sure.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, in terms of challenges and lessons learned, while sustainability solutions are for everyone, not everyone is for sustainability solutions. And I've had people yell in my face, you can't take away my gas stove, or think that what we're advocating for is just crazy. And what I've learned is it's important to just be able to rationally respond and discuss what you're advocating for or what you're speaking about, and not to lose your cool, because not everybody is going to agree with you. But even getting them to just listen to you is educating them. I've had a lot of very difficult conversations over the years with folks, and it's gotten easier, but it's still not easy. So.
Anyone else in the panel?
Oh, adding to that, I think I can't believe, 20 years later, I'm still having to make the business case for environmental responsibility and decarbonization. And a lot of times they don't want to invest because they don't see the long-term benefit. Or lawyers want to soften, we don't want to have a target for carbon reduction because what if we don't hit it? And you have to explain to them that you have to start somewhere, that this is important, and the cost of not doing it is insurmountable. So we need to start now.
I think that's the perfect place. And I mean, I'm looking at the folks in Sustainable Westchester who want to move us to our next segment. But this piece is really important. Two things that actually, understanding that there's a simple principle in climate change called the precautionary principle. When the climate change convention was first negotiated, it was very much part of the articles, which said that if you wait till the science is absolutely certain, it's going to be too late. So the embedded in the need to address climate change is this understanding that the precautionary principle, you're doing things now before it gets much, much worse and much, much more expensive. And in this discussion, we have to say something and be completely open about it, which is, climate change is going to have devastating impacts to those people and those lives that are often the least represented. Candida worked in small island developing states in the past. Marsha has experience there. Niki is global. Norah has been to Australia. Many countries around the world, whether they have coastal areas or whether they are struggling with desertification, this issue of poorer lives is it's something that we all have to commit to and address, especially organizations that are so committed to social justice and climate action for communities like Sustainable Westchester, like Groundwork Hudson, like all the other universities and actions that we're doing. And the other piece, to just leave everyone with, is one thing. Niki, you reminded me of something. I had said to my sons that if I ever say I'm going to write a book again, someone needs to knock me on the head or do something, because it is painful work. It is really difficult to write on climate change in an environment where you feel that sense of despair that Niki, but breaking it down into component parts and feeling like you can achieve something every day, however small it is, having those friendships, working for an organization where you have partnerships, so important. But I want to let our panelists or anyone else in this crowd. Oh, yes. So I see that Megan has said we can spend a few more minutes and we can do Sustainable Westchester actions at 10. I want to call on the audience once again. Anyone want to unmute themselves and ask a question, share an insight about a climate action or a sustainability initiative that they're passionate about, that they're going to be doing?
Hi, this is Patricia Phillips. I'm in from Queens, and I want to make a statement, and then I have a question. My statement is I am very good friends with Megan Ort, and I just want to make sure that everybody in this meeting knows that she is a Broadway star and is one of the smartest and kindest and most talented people I have had the opportunity to work with in my life. And I've been in 6 Broadway shows. So the fact that I'm here and she's leading the way, she's been leading the way for me in so many ways. And I've been a climate activist for as long as I can remember, back in the 80s, trying to get recycle bins in the backstage areas of the Broadway theaters. And so I just wanted to shout out to Megan that she's the one that got me here, and I am forever, like I am not worthy. My question is, where do I find resources to start doing stuff out in Queens? Because I know this is all Westchester, and I don't know if this is something I should write an email to somebody about, or, take this somewhere else to the next level. That's my question.
You have been hiding quietly in broad daylight. So no one knew about your Broadway star. Now it's all coming together. So I'm gonna kick it. I'm gonna give you a minute to shine. Ted, we never had a chance to hear from. Actually, never have a chance to hear from Carmen, Dara, and Megan, who have done so much work in organizing this. So can we all take a couple of seconds to hear from these lovely people? Megan, tell us.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, there are a few things that may apply in the Sustainable Westchester actions that apply to New York City. So I'm very excited. And in fact, when Patricia and I were working on Sweeney Todd together, singing along with Josh Groban last year, I had volunteered as the company's green captain and put out a little Greenie Todd newsletter. So that was kind of my way to keep people in the loop about climate actions. Patricia spoke about, recycling bins backstage. I would let people know where's the closest compost bin, that sort of thing. And I would say, yeah, it's hard. It's finding those little things that you can do locally. What can I do locally? But one of those things we're going to be talking about is the Grid Rewards app. It's come up a few times, but it's for Con Edison customers. So a lot of these programs do overlap with New York City. And the New York State, the NYSERDA Clean Energy Hubs, they cover all New York State as well. So there are options out there that we'd be happy to share, and there is overlap between our counties. Dara or Carmen, do you want to pop in?
Yeah, I just want to echo what Megan said. We're going to talk about some actions next. But yeah, I mean, it's finding even maybe researching your local nonprofits around the area. Sustainable Westchester is for Westchester County, but I'm pretty sure, doing a little bit of research of trying to maybe seeing what grassroots organizations are in your area is a good start. Because sometimes, especially in New York City, I feel like there's a lot of abundance of grassroots organizations and community that really care about environmental issues.
Yeah, so Patricia, you're getting some inputs. You're getting Niki saying sign up for community solar. You're getting Megan putting We Act, and I put in the Queen's Climate Project for you. Okay, so plenty of action for you to get involved with. But I also want to have Carmen. Carmen, tell us a little bit about what made you into this space and got you into the climate space, because you were instrumental in getting me here. So,
well, thank you, Anilla. I guess it's a long road. I started in my undergraduate years, and I took some sustainability and capitalism courses, and I was studying engineering at the time. So I really felt that I had to be more conscious about what I was going to do with that engineering degree, and decided to turn into environmental engineering from a civil engineering degree. And so I focused on that for a few years. I went and got my master's degree in environmental engineering, and also worked in that professional space for about 5 years in terms of water quality modeling and also remediation work. And then I've decided that environmental engineering is great, but I wanted to be more proactive in action. So I wanted to try to solve problems before they become problems. So I turned into the sustainability space, and that's what brought me to Sustainable Westchester. And what brought me to help organize this event is to empower women, to empower everyone to take action. And so I think that's a great lead into what we're going to do next, which is share about actions. But Anilla, if you want to share something else first.
No, I have one audience member who has said that, I don't have, Ela, it says that you don't have the ability to raise your hand, but you want to invite people to an event. You can either post the event in the chat, or you can unmute yourself. Are you able to
Okay.
unmute yourself?
Yeah, yes, I am. For some reason, it wouldn't
Fantastic.
let me raise my hand. Hi, everybody. Isla Gillenwater with Opal Energy Group. I work as a vice president of a solar developer and EPC. So we build solar and battery energy storage all over the country. I also have been an environmentalist for a very long time, and I volunteer on a policy group that focuses in a region in the Mid-Atlantic. And we are hosting a solar and storage energy conference on Cinco de Mayo, May 5th and 6th. If anybody would love to come, we'd love to have you there to learn more about what the policy looks like there. It's going to be a lot of people on the policy side, a lot of people on the business side. It's a great chance to network and learn about what's going on in other places. I am all about raising up the younger generation coming in. If I can be of help to anybody, please feel free to reach out. And I'll put the link to the event in the chat.
Thank you, Ila.
And thank you for having it. It's Isla, by the way.
Oh, Isla, sorry, my bad. Isla, apologies. You know, we're all from different parts of the world and everyone's, I apologize for mispronouncing it. But listen, one thing that we have to, before we go on, is this is an opportunity for us to get together more. I think that this is this has like energized us. And if we can find a place to have a woman focused climate action, sustainability discussion, and that's wonderful. And let's see how it goes. With that, Sustainable Westchester folks, please take it away from me at least and lead us into new action.
Thank you so much, Anilla, and thank you, panelists. As I mentioned before, we will have breakout rooms so we can do small group discussions right after our action moment. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And today we have 4 climate actions that we want to share with everyone. Hold on, let me enter my full screen mode here. The technical, present full screen. Okay, great. So yeah, Sustainable Westchester, we have 4 climate actions. And if they don't apply to you directly, maybe like think about who in your life this might apply to, because this is about amplifying our actions as well. So I'm going to start us off with climate action number 1, energy smart homes intake form. So I work on the residential team for the building decarbonization team at Sustainable Westchester, and we provide services to New York State residents all across the state. We can refer you to an energy advisor if you're not in Westchester County. This is for homeowners or renters in a 1 to 4 family building or those building owners. We provide free, oh no, already the tech. We provide free advising to New Yorkers to navigate all the incentives out there, all the programs, the contractors in your region to get home energy efficiency upgrades. So we're talking about insulating or air sealing your home to make it more efficient, or transitioning from your fossil fuel system to an electric system using either air source heat pumps or ground source heat pumps, or changing out your water heater for an electric heat pump water heater. There's also this wonderful program by New York State called the Empower Plus program. It's for low to moderate income households, and this provides no cost or low cost upgrades for that insulation and air sealing. And the whole goal of this is to stop energy waste. So that's good for you and it's good for the environment. So it's going to improve home comfort while reducing costs to you and environmental impact as well. A really big piece of the carbon emission pie in New York State is how we heat and cool our buildings. So any actions you can take to make a home more efficient or electrify, do it. We're here to advise you through that process, or advise your friends or neighbors or what have you. And with that, climate action number 2.
So climate action number 2 is something you can actually just do with your phone. You just have to download the app Grid Rewards. Essentially, Grid Rewards, if you're a Con Ed user, you pay a Con Ed bill, whether you live in an apartment, a home, or if you own a business and you pay Con Ed energy bills, you're applicable to sign up for this program. You essentially get paid to save energy. And not only do you get paid for saving energy, you essentially also help reduce carbon emissions that happen around usually disadvantaged communities, because during the summer we use way too much energy. And what happens is we have to use another power plant that is usually called a peaker power plant. And they're less inefficient, more costly, and they are one of like the dirtiest power sources of energy. And we can all reduce our usage of this power plant by lowering our energy usage when we get this notification gamification with the Grid Rewards app. And you also can get $10 when you refer a friend. So overall, a good app to use.
Next up, climate action number 3. Carmen?
So I'm excited to share some additional great ways in which you can take action this April. So throughout Westchester County, we're going to have a lot of Earth Month events happening where you can get involved. So there are festivals, nature walks, there are repair cafes where you can fix things that are broken. To make it easier for you, Sustainable Westchester is putting together a list of events in one place. You just have to visit sustainablewestchester.org/Earth Day 2025 or scan a QR code that we're going to be sharing soon. In the webpage, we'll be sharing a full list of events in a calendar shape and also just a list. And we'll be also accepting community events that you would like to include in the calendar for the next few days. So please do go ahead on the webpage and submit your events. So let's get involved, spread the word, and let's take action. So our beautiful Earth needs us. So please do take some action. Thank you.
And rounding it out, climate action number 4, we have a job fair coming up in June. So if this applies to you or somebody in your life, please save the date, share it out, June 18th from 2 to 6 at the Westchester County Center in White Plains. There will be free parking. So this is an opportunity for folks to connect with employers about high-paying jobs in the clean energy space, network with clean energy professionals, learn about what's going on, and explore industry training programs specifically. So this is for clean energy employers, trainers, resource groups, job seekers, or just curious individuals. Come on by. We're all going to be there. We can connect. There might even be a panel discussion. Who knows? But yeah, so we can share out all of these fun links and QR codes. We've got links in the chat. Get your phones out. So either use the QR code to take action or use the links in the chat. And just as like a little recap over here on the left, if you're a homeowner or know of a homeowner in New York State, have them fill out the intake form for the Energy Smart Homes department. We can advise folks to upgrade, insulate their home, electrify, anything you got to do with your home, appliances, heating and cooling. Ask us first because there might be money on the table that you don't know about. Second column here, Con Edison customers. You cannot leave this Zoom without downloading the Grid Rewards app. I have to emphasize this. So I'm a Grid Rewards customer user as well. So Con Edison will pay you. I got $75 last year just because I reduced my AC on those Grid Rewards, event days. It was like 2 days throughout the summer, and I just reduced my electricity from 2 to 6 p.m. or something, whenever they tell me to do the challenge. And because I did that, Con Edison paid me in a rebate check at the end of the year. So if you're a Con Ed customer, if you know of a Con Edison customer, send it out. And once you sign up and refer somebody, you get $10. So think of 5 friends who have Con Ed, that's $50 just for you at the end of the year. Third column, please, if you know of any events that are happening in Earth Month, which is April, submit that so we can include it in our calendar. And also you might want to save this page or just think, okay, like I want to get involved in April. Let me see what's going on the Sustainable Westchester calendar. That's going to be published soon. And finally, in our last column, June 18th is going to be our job fair. If you are an employer or know of an employer, you can secure a free table with us and share out training opportunities or employment opportunities there. Job seekers can register here. And do my co-hosts have anything else to add about these climate actions that I didn't cover?
Just encouraging everyone to go ahead and scan this, take a picture of this. You can always revisit it next, maybe later, 5 minutes from now, after you had dinner, if you didn't have dinner yet.
Yeah, feel free to just take a picture so that way you can take a chance to look at all these QR codes if everything applies to you.
Do we have any Grid Rewards users in here? Because the money from last year just came out, didn't it? Anybody?
Yeah, a lot of people are saying in the chat how they've earned money from last year's
great
response events. Someone got over $100 last year from using the app.
Oh my gosh, I'm seeing the chat now. I love Grid Rewards. Stunning.
I got over 100 too.
It's
And I know
money.
that Niki was very competitive. Mayor Armacost was very competitive with the other mayors, and right, Niki?
We
Grid
did. We
Rewards
had a
was-
competition. So two things. We actually signed up our municipal meters for grid rewards and got money that way, which was fantastic. But we also had a competition with the other river towns, and that was very exciting. Last year, I was very thrilled that Hastings won, but the year before, Dobbsbury Run won, which was an absolute outrage. But it was fantastic to get so many people signed up in such a short time. Everyone, I think, really enjoyed being slightly competitive about it.
So there it is, Sustainable Westchester. Start a competition amongst your municipalities.
They did it. I mean, Lauren was amazing. She handheld us all through the process and took photos of us being, kind of like sweetly competitive with one another. So thank you for that. And thanks to Sustainable Westchester for spearheading that.
Absolutely. This kind of reminds us that this is for big buildings as well. So small apartments all the way up to big buildings. You can get a smart AI. If you're a large building owner or know of a large building owner. But yeah, there's our actions. And we'll share this out in a post Zoom email as well. So shall we move to our final moments here? So we wanted to absolutely take a moment to, again, thank our moderator and our panelists. Thank you so much for making this evening so incredible and such rich conversations. Dara, Carmen.
Just want to thank everyone for being here. I'm sorry, Dara, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just like applauding and just saying like, yeah, thank you everyone for being here.